Well, I want to thank all of you for showing up this morning. I've heard of a variety of interesting festivities from last night, and some of your colleagues may be vertically challenged this morning and unable to make it. But thank you for coming here. We've got a really great program this morning, and it's my pleasure to actually kick it off with just a superb speaker for us. There's an old adage that says, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And in the case of Tom Toles, it's probably a picture is worth 1 billion words, particularly when it comes to the issue of climate policy. For those of you who don't know, Tom Toles is the editorial cartoonist for the Washington Post, a position he's held since 2002. He's been nationally syndicated by the Andrews McMeel Syndicate, and he's previously served as editorial cartoonist for the Buffalo News, the Buffalo Courier-Express, the New York Daily News, the New Republic Magazine, and U.S. News and World Report. He's got an amazing list of awards that he's received justifiably over the course of his career, including the Pulitzer Prize, the Herblock Cartooning Prize, the National Cartoonist Society Best Editorial Cartoons, National Headliner Award, the National Wildlife Federation, the Conservation Achievement Award, among many others. It's a very impressive list, and it's really a pleasure to have him here. In addition, he's had 6 collections of his editorial cartoons published. He's authored and illustrated a children's book, My School is Worse Than Yours. He's drawn a syndicated comic strip, Curious Avenue, and a syndicated comic panel, Randolph Itch, 2 a.m. And in 2016, he published a book that he co-authored with the scientist Michael Mann, The Madhouse Effect, about climate change and climate change denialism. It really is my pleasure to introduce to you Tom Toles. Tom?
Thank you. Hi, thank you very much. Let me thank you in a different way. Thank you for not only showing up, but thank you for doing the work you're doing and will do on climate. If you ever wondered at any point in your life whether you would work on something important, I would describe it as saying that you have found yourself working on what is probably arguably the most important human activity in entire human history, and this happens to be probably the most important moment in that. So, you're in essentially the bullseye of the most important moment of human history. So I hope you take it very seriously. And there's a lot riding on what you do, so get it right, please. Now, since I'm only a cartoonist, I don't have to take any responsibility for anything, but I have been drawing cartoons on climate since the 80s, and it's been a challenge. As everybody knows, this has been a very difficult subject to communicate effectively. I have tried it from every single possible avenue I could think of, and I brought some cartoons to illustrate the different ways I have come at it. Okay, this cartoon is probably not the best one I've done, and it's so subtle that it probably wasn't effective. I probably shouldn't have brought it today. I probably shouldn't have started out with it. It may not ever should have been drawn at all, but there's way more going on in this than, first of all, it's how do you come at climate, because it's a tricky subject. So one of the ways I've come at it is through art history references. This is a visual reference to Dali's The Persistence of Memory. So it's got the painting going on. I thought it captured the surreal nature of the debate about climate, which has never been like a very straightforward, here are the facts, and people say, okay, well, these are the facts, then those are the facts. It's been, well, no, these are the facts, and no, these are our facts over here. So I thought it captured the real quality, the sluggish, dreamlike procrastination of this issue when the stakes have been so high and the progress has been so slow. I wanted to capture some of that. If you'll notice in the original painting, if you remember it, which maybe you do and maybe you don't, but they were real clocks. These are sundials, which I thought was an interesting play on the additional heat being trapped from the sun. The shadows are all falling on number 11 because it's the 11th hour. And the line down at the lower right-hand corner is that there are no alarm clocks. So there. Now you can say, wow, Tom, that's really intellectual. I bet you changed a lot of minds with that one. In any case, another art history reference is something that I hope does change a few more minds. It's the cover of the book I did with Michael Mann, who has been spectacular to work with. This is a reference, obviously, to Monk's The Scream. It's a twist on that in that while the Madhouse Effect is a play on Greenhouse Effect, and the Scream is not just a cry of dismay, but it's a scream that the earth is in fact on fire. I did not bring copies to sell. This is not why I'm here. I'm not trying to make money off of climate change. I'm just trying to help get the thing fixed. Another reference, everybody's, certainly a lot of the opponents to the climate change issue know Bible stories. So I did one about Noah and the flood being a climate-like event that everybody was familiar with. They said in climate change, God is saying climate change, there will only be 2 seasons now, drought and flooding. And in a drought, you should begin building your ark for the next flood. But he's replying that the drought killed all the trees and the animals. That's funny in a very bleak way. This is a reference to the science part of the debate and how Senator Inhofe, as a great example, brought a snowball onto the Senate floor as his evidence, and I just expanded on that. This is not him in particular, but it's somebody bringing an expert witness to testify against climate science. Because of that same snowstorm, slush for brains. Down at the bottom, he has lost his witness. Another thing, I try to bring things back to things people are familiar with. Everybody's familiar with Santa Claus. It seemed like an obvious connection with the melting Arctic ice, where the workshop has fallen through. What are we going to get the kids for Christmas this year? And there was another thing, people used to get coal, and bad children used to get coal in their stockings. And at the bottom it said their parents were bad. Speaking of ice, one of the things that denialists have often engaged in, or not so much anymore, well, they're still doing it, is saying that the data is being faked, whatever that actually means. And this is a cartoon about that with collapsing ice sheets. And while the climate change evidence faking has gotten really elaborate, there's a city in there. At the bottom it says, "A rising tide lifts all moats." There's been an argument that all we have to do is, and I won't mention any names, but Bjorn Lomborg comes to mind, as somebody says, we can't do anything, we just have to wait for a single breakthrough technology. We don't actually have to encourage alternative fuel sources because that just won't work. We have to wait for the magic invention. Now, obviously, technology is and will continue to play a role in this, but it's not going to be a magic one technology. But this is a cartoon on that. It's the year 2060, the search for breakthrough technology to solve climate change continues. It's a time machine we hope will take us back 50 years when we should have put a price on carbon. The next one is a cartoon that the ever-shifting arguments of denialists and resistors and obfuscators and procrastinators has been maddening, and I tried to capture it all in one cartoon. There have been some subsequent developments to when I did this cartoon, but I think it gets a lot of it. I put the thing in the voice of Uncle Sam. It could be a whole lot of different people. And my wife, Gretchen, who's in the audience, always says, "Don't read the cartoons, let them read it." And I'm going to read it anyway. Okay, global warming isn't happening. It is happening. If it's happening, maybe it's a good thing. It's not a good thing. If it's not a good thing, it can't be confirmed. It has been confirmed. If it's confirmed, maybe it's not caused by humans. It is caused by humans. Even if it's caused by humans, maybe it will fix itself. It won't fix itself. If it won't fix itself, there's nothing we can do. There are things we can do. If there are things we can do, they're too expensive. They're not too expensive. If they're not too expensive, we can postpone doing them. We can't postpone doing them. What do you mean? This conversation has taken over a decade already. Now, the interesting thing about this cartoon, the sad thing is, this cartoon was done a decade ago. We've gone another decade, and we're still in the same, not the same place, but not far enough along. Down at the bottom says, "I'm just warming up," which is obviously a pun. This is a very briefer cartoon about how the alarm keeps getting sounded, and we look like we're almost going to get the thing solved, and somehow there's the alarm again. Why does it never stop? When gasoline became cheap again, we had a choice. That seemed like an awfully good time to start with a gasoline tax, carbon tax. Selecting your grades, save climate, destroy climate. Now, going back to the fire engine, down at the bottom it says a negative feedback loop, which was another idea that denialists hope would make the problem go away, that somehow negative feedback loops would somehow just, it was just a hope more than an assertion, but maybe it would solve itself that way. This next one is a cartoon. Rising sea levels finally extinguished the last coal plant. See, I told you climate is self-correcting. This next one is an illustration from the book about some of the geoengineering ideas, and it's not like that they're all completely implausible on their face. I think the legitimate concern is there's no control. There's no way to, once you start these things on a large scale, you have no idea what unintended consequences are going to be. I've added a mirror, a particle cannon, some iron filings, and a vacuum. I think I've got it right this time. And then lastly, in this series of different ways of approaching it, one of the arguments that people have tried to make is that, well, it really doesn't matter what we do to Earth. In fact, it's pretty foregone conclusion that we're going to ruin it. So we'll just escape to another planet. Now, that's a lot of, including fairly smart people, think of this as a sensible, reasonable way to think about the problem. I'm not one of those people. This is a cartoon about that. I mean, they're always talking about finding another planet that may possibly support some kind of life, and it's only like half a light year away or something, but that's still a pretty considerable distance. But in any case, scientists have discovered another Earth-like planet. At last, our dream of a new planet after we've wrecked our own. How similar to Earth is it? Exactly similar. Okay. All right. I want to sit down by myself in this grouping over here. I'm not going to stay here. I just want to, just there. Okay. And now now there's, well, things were bad enough. And then we did this. That's Donald Trump, and I have built a wall against climate reality, and you will pay for it. Now, Donald Trump these are comments that are not reflective of anyone in this room. They're not reflective of anyone's opinion at the Washington Post. These are solely my own opinion, and I take full responsibility for them. I don't want anybody else to take the blame. On the other hand, I have some very, very, very strong, and I would describe them as vehement opinions about this particular person being President of the United States. You know, he said during the campaign that because he was a star, he could women would let him do anything he wanted. And there he is. Climate he thinks is too expensive to deal with, but the military apparently is free to have their budget increased, and he's being a commander. He says you have 30 days to come up with a military solution to climate change. This is what that would probably look like, the battle of military funding against environmental protection, the military shouting to the ice sheet, freeze. This one, yeah, the war on ISIS. Thank you. Okay. Now, there are those, in his recent missile attack, there are those who were thoroughly persuaded that President Trump was moved by the pictures of the gas attack on babies. I don't know for a fact that this is not what's not as genuine as he made it appear. I will note that everything that comes out of his mouth, regardless of how reasonable or preposterous, is always delivered with that same level of sincerity, the sincerity of someone who has no memory and no regard for the truth. In any case, I took, it was right after that missile attack that he announced some additional climate policies, and I did this cartoon. It looks like another gas attack on babies, which it is, the Trump coal policy, sulfur dioxide, mercury, climate change, nitrous oxide, ozone, acid rain, and the president replying, "I don't think so, it's not on cable TV." Right? That one's not quite funny in the same way. Then, oh yes, his health care, he didn't get health care through, and that was, thank you, I got the warning. I'm doing well. Actually, I'm almost done. Thank you for the warning. Okay, everyone is waiting to see who Trump will blame and punish for his big health care defeat, announce more climate rules, Earth must die. He won't have all the power, and the Republican House and the Republican Senate passed, and I signed. The Republican Supreme Court upheld my decree that you must recede. Probably the way he does think about it. And lastly, but not leastly, his infrastructure plan is going one way, where the advanced technology that's actually going to deal with our climate and all the other important economic and environmental issues that we're going to be facing in the 21st century is developing in California and China and elsewhere, and he's going off in his own direction. I will just conclude by saying we've absolutely have to get this right, and we are right at the last possible moment to get it right. I think the election of Donald Trump was personally, I view it as a catastrophe in every way. My own opinion is that we have to find a way to get him out of office before he completes his first term. I think on climate alone, he has disqualified himself to serve in an office of responsibility. This is no longer a topic for debate. It is no longer a topic. It has never been a topic without consequences. That's not your job to get him out of office. That's my job. I will be doing my best. But it is your job to save the planet. Thank you very much.